Welcome back, everybody. I'm standing here in the assembly room and I got the 26 spoker behind me. It's been kind of a long process of getting everything cleaned up, and I was hoping it was just going to be a quick fix, but the way it turns out, I've almost got every bolt out of it. So one thing led to the next and the next thing and the next thing, and pretty soon I had it all tore apart. So anyway, I'll know what this tractor is like when I get it rebuilt and put back together. It'll be really good shape, so at least I'll know that there won't be any mysteries in it. Like you can see, I've got a lot of parts scattered around the room, ready to put back on, and I'll just show you around a little bit what I've done so far, and we'll take it from there. So starting with the main case, I've got the crankcase all cleaned out, not a bolt in it. And the transmission, all the shafts are out. And it's been all cleaned up. Got the terrible black tarish grease taken out of it and cleaned up. That's really an unbelievable job to get that tarish grease out of there. But anyway, got the chains out. They're all cleaned up, ready to go back in. And here's one more look from the back end. If you've never seen one completely tore down, there it is. There's the serial number too. I don't know if you can read it or not, but its 100th birthday is coming up pretty quick. So here's the first reduction gear and spline shaft with the shifting gears on it. And I put on new bearings, and I'm ready to slip it back in after I get the differential put together and installed. It sure works nice to press that gear on that shaft so you don't have to pound on anything. I've seen them, actually the shaft I took out of this tractor, they had pounded on this end and mushroomed it out so badly to try to get that on that gear. And it's kind of a tough way to go and ruins a lot of stuff. But here is the right hand side of the tractor. And there's the reverse idler and shaft that I'll put in after I get the differential put back in. The front end I've rebuilt, got it all up to snuff. And here's the rear axle coils. The one, I guess it's the left-hand sided one. The bearing, the outside bearing fell apart in my hand when I took it apart. So, and that was the first axle I took off and realized, oh, this thing is needing some work. So I put in a new bearing and race on that end. I had some more extra bearings there, new ones, in case I needed them more, but as it turned out, the rest of the three bearings were fine, so I'm going to reuse those. But I had everything cleaned up, and I got to pull the axle back out and grease the bearing, and then assemble the felt on the end and the screw-on cap. And then the first thing I'm going to do is get this differential out of my way. I've got it all tore apart. This was the original differential that was in it. At one point, they had taken the rivets all out of the ring gears, and I suppose they had put in new spiders and shafts on the spiders. But when they put it back together, instead of putting the rivets back in, they drilled these out for a 9/16 bolt, which is a good idea. And there's the bolts. They're kind of a special bolt. Maybe the later ones had that bolt package put in them. I don't know, but I don't know where they got the bolt package, but I liked it. And so I'm just going to put it right back the way it was. Unfortunately, the the big gear, which is low, it was kind of chewed up a little bit. And so I had found this gear at another guy's place. He found me a gear that was pretty nice. Without thinking much of it, I hauled it right back home and thought, well, I can drill those holes out and get it assembled. But as it turns out, there's quite a bit of temper in those gears, and my drill wouldn't even hardly touch it. And so I was kind of back to square one with it. And I thought, well, I'll just put the old gear back on once drilled and all that. And nobody will know that some of the teeth are kind of rough, but I decided to heat each hole up and try to take the temper out of it. I don't know if that made any difference or not, but for me, I thought, I tried to drill a little bit after I did that, and I thought it had taken the temper out of it a little bit, but anyway, I didn't have the right size bit anyway, so I took it in to my local blacksmith shop and asked them if they could drill them out, and so they attempted and they got it drilled out, and now I'm ready to assemble. He says it was pretty tough to get them to go through, but he did manage to get them all drilled out, so now I'm ready to go and put it all together. So it was challenging on that differential. And it is an early differential carrier that has the dainty gussets in here. And I don't know how many years they made these before they beefed them up. They closed up these holes in them later to beef it up. And then they put in more bolts around the outside too. So they put in 3 extra bolts on the later ones. But anyway, this carrier is pretty decent shape. Usually when you take them apart and take the rivets out of them, you'll have some ears that are broke off. That just happens as you, I don't know, over the years of pulling it, or whether they do it when they rivet together, but these ears were all good. And so I thought, well, I can sure use that again. So it's been challenging, but I think I'm ready to put it back together and be in good shape. So I'll set up and show you that as I'm putting it together. Well, I'm back. It was challenging to get everything put together. To get this seated in the ring around here, that wasn't so terrible once I got all the bolts working together and pulling it together. But you want to make sure you put the short head on the back side so it's out of the way of the brake band, and then put the nuts on this side. This would be the right hand side in the transmission. You want to put the nuts out here because they won't bother anything on this side. I tried to put these on with an impact wrench, and I think that was a no-no. it seemed to mess up the threads. I pounded the bolts through, and the holes in the ring gear matched up really well, but it would maybe every once in a while slightly ruin the threads. So I chased each one of the threads and then put the nuts on and didn't use the impact wrench. So the impact wrench seemed to want to roll up the threads as I was pulling together. So I did it all by hand and gone around and pulled them all together and tightened them up and got them cotter pinned. So I'm ready to put on the bevel gears, and I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on that shaft just to give it some pre-lube. So if it ever sat around, it's going to sit around so long that all the grease is going to probably be out of it, but it'll keep this grease in there. And that way it'll always have some lube in it. And there's no thrust bearing or thrust washer in here because all the pressure is wanting to expand out on the beveled gears and push against out here. That's why these bolts are in here with the washers that are clamping this all together. And then there's a washer on the outside of this rotary washer up against the quill. And that all is pushing in on the beveled gears, which are trying to push out. So there's no need to have a thrust washer in there. And you want to make sure you have just a little bit of clearance in here for where that thrust washer has a place to tighten up against without pushing against the bevel gear. I'm not sure I explained all that when I was putting together the 24D last year. But that's the engineering behind it. And then you want to fit the brake band around there while you got it out, so you can fit it up real nice and tight. Conform it to the brake band or the brake hub. And unfortunately, all this needs to be together as you're setting it down into the case. You can't get these bevel gears in there when the whole differential assembly is inside the case. You don't have enough room to push it over far enough to get those bevel gears on. So you got to get everything on there, but there's nothing to keep this from slipping off, which is a little tough to deal with as you're trying to tilt it into the transmission case. So now I'm ready to chain it up and hook it on to my crane and start dropping it in the case. Get that to sit up there. See, they want to slip off so easy. It would be nice if I could put all the washers and bearings on the outside here and hold everything together with the bearings, but the bolts that stick out here won't let you get the whole assembly into the case, which is, I don't know why they made it so tight to get in. So now I'm looking inside the case. I got the camera set up inside. Before I can put the differential in, I got to put in this idler shaft, the reverse idler shaft. And as you can see, there's set screws on it. This was the shaft that was actually in it. And this was the cog that was in it, and it was pretty good shape, but I did have to put in a new bushing on this end and ream it out, or I guess it was on this end, and then ream it to fit the shaft. So I'm gonna assemble that. Put a collar on each side of it with the set screw towards the front, and then the small side of the gear on first. And another collar on the other side. And then those slots for the set screws go on the front side. And so there's a hole, an indent hole here for your set screw on the left-hand side to go up from the bottom outside the case. But in order to keep this from leaking in here, I'm going to put some of this aviation forma gasket in there and around that set screw and tighten it all up, and then put in the Welch plug with some more of this. And in my experience, that seems to do the trick so it doesn't leak. So I'll wipe some of that inside that boss from the outside here. I will put the set screw in from the outside, start it in the hole, and then I'll put some more sealer on top of that screw, coat that hole pretty good in there where the threads are at in that screw. Because that is a spot where they like to leak. And then I'll screw it in about 3/8 from the top and fill up that hole with a little bit of sealer. And then slip the shaft in. Make sure you get it in the detent, and then wipe off the excess and kind of smear it around in that hole on the outside. And then I'll tighten up the set screw and drive in the Welch plug. On the other side, that just weeps back and forth between the first reduction gear cover and the transmission. Okay, and then I think I will put just a little bit of grease on that. Let's see, that bushing runs right here. I don't want to fill up that groove that the oil runs into right here. It just a little bit of lubrication so it doesn't sit there and run dry. If I could find about where that set screw was before. Put it right back to where it was. I think I'm in the same spot there. And I'm going to take a chance on it being in the same spot when it meshes with the differential gears. Maybe I better not wire those until I get the differential in. Make sure that they mesh straight with the gears on the differential. So this little cup right here on top of this collar is into that groove in the shaft that's supposed to run the oil into the idler gear. So everything there is lined up. So that should work. So I think we're ready to drop in the differential. Okay, well here we are over the top of the tractor, looking down into the transmission case. And I've got the differential over the case, and I'm going to start letting it down in there slowly. And hopefully the beveled gears do not slip off. Okay, I got this shaft on this side. I'm going to go in with it first and tilt it down in there. I'm just about 3/4 of an inch on this side. I have to gain by tipping it down in there. Okay, go ahead a little bit towards the front and get the brake band started up underneath there. I'm right in the center of the bearings on the side, so I will switch the camera to show you what I'm doing underneath there. I'm here on the right side of the transmission case, and I put in a thrust washer against the bevel gear, and I put the smooth side, the machine side, out towards the bearing, and then I put the bearing and race, the inner race, in with, and I put a lot of tacky grease on it, greased it up pretty good, and then I put the outside washer on with the 2 bolts and wired it. So now I'm ready to stick the quill in, and I made a gasket for that and put on the aviation sealer. There's a thrust washer on the inside there. That's a 684 washer, and that takes up the remaining side-to-side clearance. I need to drop down the differential just a little bit. Okay, now I got the bearing completely in there. And I think I was just on a shoulder. So those bolts, these bolts here go into oil. So I'm going to put some sealer on those. Tighten them all up even. And that's it for this side. So now I can take out my crane and see if it turns freely. And I got to adjust my idler gear a little bit. seems pretty good. I gotta adjust my idler gear over about a 1/2 inch and wire those set screws and put my lever in here for the brake band and adjust that, and then I'll be ready to put the rear axles and the chains in. So that pretty much completes the assembly of the differential into the transmission case. And with just a few things that I have to do, put the handle in the side for the brake band and adjust it, and adjust the idler gear down there, the reverse idler gear shaft, adjust that over just a little bit and wire those set screws. And I'll be ready to put the rear axles in and hook up the chains in. So keep following me and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like this content, and we'll see you down the road.